Alright guys, we're going to take a quick look at day 4. I'm not going to do a long extended version on day 4 because these are projects we've already pretty much done a million times. So day 4, broken down in two parts. We're going to do the building out API wrappers and a Spotify project. So the Spotify project is the same one we've done. Um, a bunch of us have done already. So I just kind of put a version of it in here. I did remove, so some of you may have a version that has JSDoc in here. I did remove all the JSDoc comments because I didn't want to confuse anybody. We will kind of mention JSDoc when we get into TypeScript. But I didn't figure in 2023 JSDoc was that big of a thing that we needed to worry about, especially when we're trying to get into TypeScript. So we're basically only going to talk about JSDoc in a way to work with JavaScript and TypeScript together. If you really want to get into it now, feel free. Don't make me stop you. I think that's always fun to do. So basically, we just have our, you got to put in your credentials and stuff. Don't forget to do that and actually get these. And if this doesn't work, this is Brian's copy, so you can yell at him. It is kind of an older copy. I hope this one does indeed still work. If things have changed, I'm sorry. But you guys should probably have your own version of these anyway. And then the other part of the day, which is the first part of the day, is the designing API wrappers. So our goal for that, day 4 overview. So the goal here is, I have a demo put together for you. It's using Axios and this QuizUp API. If you check this out, you can see we have this cool API. You can use this, by the way, for anything you want in this course. Feel free to have fun with it. It is a paid for Heroku app, so there is, it doesn't need to wake up or anything silly like that. We have our endpoints here. So this is from a bookstore. There's some other endpoints on this API that I do not have described here. This was from a bookstore API. But here what I exposed to us here is a registration endpoint, a login, ability to edit user and delete user. The login process in this API uses token auth. So the way you do this is to log in, get your token, and then you have your token, and then you could use any of your token auth endpoints. Note registration has no auth because obviously you need to be able to register. So I did put the authentication types in here, the method, the endpoint, the content type, and if any of things that needed a payload, you do see you get an example payload. And over here on the right of each one of these, you can kind of see the output from these. So some of these don't have much output, but like login, you'll see you get this object back. And you also have things like how to do this with fetch, how to do this with Python requests, how to do this with Axios. And I know this maybe not be the format that everybody's used to seeing in our courses. I did just pull this from Postman. If anybody feels so inclined to rewrite these steps, let me know and feel free to do it. But I do think, these are fairly close to what we do. So I think they'll be okay. But, it's up to you guys. So that's the API that you can wrap. And ideally, though, really what I would love to see is you're wrapping up your API endpoints that you built in your Flask week. Because if you remember, we need to be using our Flask API within our React projects so we can actually make a full stack app. So we would really like that to be what you're wrapping. And then what's really nice about that is we can actually use that wrapper and you can just drop it into your Flask your React application, and boom. Now all the stuff dealing with the APIs is already handled, and you've got that off your plate come React Week. I think that is really helpful. Lets you spend more time on other things than just dealing with some API calls, like how to actually run those API calls. Maybe putting them in a hook, maybe adding cancel tokens, whatever you may want to do to make them a little more fun. You can also do this. So I did this example here with Axios because I'm a big fan of Axios. Also, a very clean setup here. So we have set up all of our endpoints here that we can just change them one time. So our base endpoint and then our 3 different endpoints. Note logging in is a different endpoint than all the other user CRUD operations. It is at login, and register, delete, and edit are all @/user. And then, I use the create Axios create function, which is one of my favorite things to use. Or you could do this with API sauce, another thing I really like, which is a wrapper over Axios that gives us some more functionality than Axios gives us. And just what you can do with the create is you can kind of set up your base headers and your base URL. So what you're seeing here is we made a different version for no auth, one with basic auth. So we kind of set it in here using BTOA. So one thing you do want to talk about is what the hell is BTOA or B to A or however you want to say it. And then we have our token auth. So then we got that set up for bearer tokens. And now we can use our little created things now to do the rest of our stuff. So we can just take our created part, like our client with no auth, we can add our post to the end of it, and now we have built out our register user. So now we don't have to repeat all this nonsense for every one of these little functions. It makes our life a lot easier. And now that we have these little functions, we can come down to the bottom and use them to test our driver code. So we're going to do this for all of our endpoints. So we do the CRUD operations on user, and we do the CRUD operations on questions. And note, there are two different types of questions. There are getting my questions, because when you create a question, it does get linked to the person who created it. And only that person can do any of the editing, deleting, or CRUD operations on it. Same with the user. The user's restricted CRUD operations are to the person that created it, period. So yeah, we have all these. So my questions is all the questions that the user who is querying created, and then get all questions would be all the questions that exist in the question database. I will probably clean this out from time to time, but I would assume that get all questions would start getting pretty gnarly here at some point, and it is not set up on any type of pagination or anything. So if it does get to the point where it's just too much information, just let me know, and I'll go in there and make sure I clear it out again for you if I haven't cleared it out in a decent amount of time. And then we got through all those. So now down here I got the driver code. We just make little functions. Now important here is to make sure when you write your functions, this is just your testing of your register user function, so nothing really going on here. It is an async. We do have to await, right? And then what we're going to do here is we'll use these calls and we'll comment them out. So be careful about that, because you don't want to rerun some of these calls, right? Because then you'll be re-registering people, and we can't register duplicate emails. That's another problem you may see with this if you're using this database. Is there are people that put in things like sample.email and email.email, right? That will happen. So if you're getting rejected on your register, try a different email. Then we have our login, stuff like that. So once again, we're just commenting these out and then running them as we needed. Here you will need to go get the token. So this is all linked to an index.html here using just a script tag here, and we do have Axios up here if you want to explain how that works. But this is all going to be logging out to our console. So you're going to have to open this up to actually get this token and stuff. Obviously, all these things are running asynchronously. So if we try to actually use this login function to return this value and then save it here, it may or may not actually get done in time, right? And then we try to move on and we don't have the token. So that's why we're commenting these out every time and making sure we're storing them as a variable, just to make sure we don't have any of those async problems when we're trying to run if you try to run all these commands at one time, you would have some major issues. So that's basically all there is here. It's just a big wrapper. Once again, the QID is another thing we're going to have to pull out to do our edits on our questions. So once you do your create, I do have these things like logging out the ID to the terminal, so it should be easy to go find and grab real quick. And then you can just change that here and edit the question you're working on. All right, that is day 4. I hope you guys have fun with it.